the two camera over there, maybe like watching this thing through my eyes, maybe a little, a little blurry, might be a little blurry. Coming to you somewhat live from the Greenville Beer Exchange, or GBX as we like to call it, on Lawrence Street in glorious downtown Greenville, South Carolina. I'm Russ Heaps, and welcome to this episode of Big John in 5. That's where I get my good buddy on the other side of the dais here, Big John Richards, to pick a beer from one of GBX's 23 taps. Many bottles and cans. We sniff it, we sip it, we kibitz about it. John tells us a little bit about the brewery, usually. And sometimes we even get a little brewing history. Joining us today, rose between two thorns, I guess, I don't know, is E. Randall Porter from Dayton, Ohio, fraternity brother of mine for 50 plus years. John?
Getting right into it.
What are we doing?
We're drinking a beer.
I know, I'm so happy. It makes me so happy.
We're drinking a beer from Untitled Art. They're a brewery from Waunakee, Wisconsin, but they are what we always used to call a gypsy brewer, but we were always talking about a person at that time. And in this case, it's a company. They, I think these days they have their own production facility, but they're they, as far as I know, only do collaborations of some level or another. This is a collaboration with a footwear company.
Boy, my mouth is watering already.
So there's and I didn't know this company existed until I went and researched this beer about 5 minutes ago. A company called Stitch Down, which is in New Hampshire, which makes handmade hiking boots, all leather footwear. They have this was part of a festival that they put on celebrating leather footwear, and they did some sort of a footwear boot camp, Stitch Down boot camp, I think it was called, and you got to come and I guess learn how to make shoes.
Because that's something we all need.
And they, you know, we beer people, we're friends with everybody, which that's just how it works. So they're like, we did this collaboration with our good friends at Stitch Down for their Stitch Down boot camp. So I presume this beer debuted at that actual boot camp and is a thing. In this case, there's not another brewer involved, there's just another entity involved. And the fun part about this beer is it is a barrel-aged Imperial Stout.
That's been strained through a leather boot.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So the actual description of the beer says barrel-aged Imperial Stout. You read that right. Barrel-aged Imperial Stout. No pastry, no added ingredients, no extra garbage, just old school barrel-aged Imperial Stout, which is bonkers and super fun. And that's why it's such a special beer to come out of Untitled Art, because they didn't do anything else to it.
Do we have any idea what barrel they put this in?
They didn't give any indication of what distillery or what bourbon or what whiskey or whatever. Just it says bourbon barrel aged. I think it says. I'm gonna look up there.
It just says
no, it just says barrel aged. Maybe that's what it said too at the on the site, and I just assumed it was whiskey or inferred. Maybe just a neutral barrel too. It may just be straight barrel-aged Imperial Stout.
Well, we'll find out when we taste it.
Right? Yeah.
Well, let's give it a shot.
Taste it, guys.
Text Miss Lily.
Right. Oh yeah. Now this 15.7% here too, and I certainly don't feel any alcohol burn.
No, you
but
don't.
that is a big beer.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
I mean, that makes me feel like I'm not big enough to contain this beer almost. That's a monster.
And that's saying something.
Yeah, seriously. That's fantastic. I think straight up for me, I like this one better than I like that German chocolate what we just did. That's a teaser. We did a German chocolate cake stout from these same guys.
Well, I was going to say, I think maybe I could drink more of this than that, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure that that's the case. This is a big beer.
I think this is going to, as it warms up a little, I think it's going to soften, which I think it doesn't have a whole lot of room to soften. I think it's just going to open up a little and soften. Because that first sip was just arresting with the weight of that beer, which I think is beautiful. And I do want to say that I am so glad that brewers are getting back to doing simple beer that tastes like beer, instead of beer that tastes like German chocolate cake. Since we just brought that one up.
We didn't bring it up, you brought it up.
Well, I'm using the royal we.
Okay.
Beer has become this carnival of weird flavors and people doing weird stuff that often doesn't work. And they just throw it out on the market anyway because it doesn't matter. If you throw enough ingredients at someone, they're going to go, that must be good. I'm going to drink that. And I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I want my beer to taste like beer. So, all that to say, I think this one suits me better typically than something else that would carry, a bunch of extra sweetness, a bunch of extra ingredients, a bunch of extra.
Your Uber's here for us.
This is something you would definitely want to drink on a cold winter night in front of a fire.
Right. So it is. It's super warming. You really get the oiliness of how big this beer is, and
Yeah.
it's very lightly carbonated, as you can tell, because I think this just spent time in a barrel and then they put it out in a bottle or keg. We didn't get any bottles of this one because it's so weighty feeling because there's so little carbonation and so much alcohol. But you don't get a burn. You just get that big kind of roasty, bready malt flavor. It's the weight of the malt, and it tastes so good. It's so smooth, and it's so satisfying. And it's an easy sipper. Easy's not the right word. It's easy to make this a sipper, where you would like you said, sit by the fire and just spend an hour with a beer.
It's been at least a minute since I took a sip of this. And boy, on the back of my tongue, there's just this chocolatey
It sticks with
thing
you.
right there.
That second sip hit me with more chocolate than the first sip did,
Yeah.
too.
The chocolate is really dominant.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
this beer. And I'm pretty sure within a bourbon barrel based on.
You think so? I would, maybe. I'm tasting,
I'm saying I would agree with that.
I think I'm probably getting some vanilla in there, too, that I think I would equate with coming out of a bourbon barrel.
I'm actually getting getting some bourbon flavor.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, and I frankly still trying to dissect what's going on here. And that's one of the magical things about having a beer like this is that you could sit down with this, a little 4-ounce sample, spend 20 minutes or half an hour with it, and it's going to change over time and continue presenting new flavors.
Yep. And I just want to mention that GBX is open, so there are people going in and out. The ding dong we heard every time the front door opens, this thing goes on because they've got a well stocked beer and wine store up front of this place, so they want to know anytime somebody comes in and out, so that dings, and you'll hear some voices and some people walking around, but that's kind of the fun of it. We're kind of having some fun today.
That's right.
John actually bartends here 3 or 4 shifts a week as well, so.
Right. That's because I go where the beer is.
That's
and this
right.
is one of the best beer stores and one of the best beer selections, frankly, in the South.
Yeah.
Not just in Greenville. So, one of the last bastions of good old Greenville beer locations.
Yeah.
Now that Barley's is dearly departed.
Yep. Anything else?
I think we're good.
Well, let's go then.
All right.
So damn lucky.
Bang.
See you next time.